ba cancer ku va hi kote ku khoma conference tanihi lava vulaka kona chairperson that we could have done better in terms of the notice and our arrangement so that we work hi matimba ku va hi kota ku va hi hlanganela hi hlayile henhla. But we thought we can't wait and then after the presbytery conference I hlanganeni, and I'm happy that majority of us lava hi va ka hi ri kona aka Super Tuesday were here, and we know that the conference yi ta hi pfuna na ku va hi reflecta hi languta ku the past 15 months or so ya ku va hi ri ka lockdown, how things are going. We know we're in a very challenging time, as we were saying, some of us the crisis leti hi kumaka hi ri ka tona ti va hi mhaka ya le ya COVID, le ka nkarhi wa ku nonoha wa COVID, laha things are happening left, right and center, and as hina hi ri devoted and spiritual batatani men who are God-fearing, we need to take a lead in terms of helping with counseling, helping with supporting and praying. Actually I tivekeni ri vatatani va ku khongela nkarhi lowu i nkarhi lowu nge le ku nonoheni swinene. Advocate chairperson, as much as very convenient, I've just realized that it had become worse, that the crisis that we have a swi fane swi olova ku munhu a pressa kunene a nghena ka a va ri na hina ka conference, but that it becomes so difficult compare na ku va maybe loko a hi hlangana hi ri kerekeni, you'll find that the number ya ku va hi ti prepare ku hi ya kerekeni a yi ta va even higher than now, and that shows that the situation that we're in as a country and as a church. But a hi veni ka conference leyi hi kota ku va hi pfuneka. We've lined up the speakers and even the Bible study leyi nga ta fambiseriwa hi our young minister, Reverend Mongwe. He still talk to the troubles and the challenges that we are finding ourselves. It's a serious challenging time, but take heart. Christ is the winner. Christ is the victor. We'll continue to see victory. Xikwembu xi ta hi pfuna swinene ku va hi huma aka this crisis. So this conference a yi ve yin'wana leyi nga ta hi sharpena, a yi ve yin'wana leyi nga ta hi nyika resilience, mentally, physically, spiritually. We are a little bit dull, but we can come out of this conference being sharpened. And we know that mhaka ya Zoom a yi heti timhaka, a yi fani na loko hi hlangana physical. That is a given fact, but it's something that will keep the fire burning kunde lowu nga timeki for good. So yeni mahlweni ku va hi hlanganyeta ndzilo, and I'm trusting God for a revival and the start of us going back to where we know ourselves to be and to go where we want ourselves to be. I believe that our vision as a parish ku va hi ti vona ku ri na 3,000 membership, and what a journey if we can find ourselves that we have that members ka that 3,000 i vatatana lava va khongelaka ku fana na hina hi nge le ku khongeleni, va nga committed, va nga devoted. I think the community, the world where we are living will never be the same. Vamakweru aka nkarhi wa sweswi hi vile ka challenge. The past 15 months has been challenging, even like at our Madodana, whereby we also had a very painful incidents. Loko nkarhi wun'wana u twa ku na abuse ya vana, abuse ya va ka mhani and yi le henhla hi va tatana. It seems like it's a far-fetched or swi le kule, but I think hina as a va tatana, we've just experienced a very troubling and torturing thing that Madodana wa hina u teke xibamu a tikuma a duvurile manana wa ximbalo, not 4 bullets, not 5, but many bullets. And with that, it shows that we are in a serious crisis. That is a tip of an iceberg. There are a lot of things that are not coming out, like that case laying a huma, you saka the newspaper, naleka ka TV as a church and as Madodana. So we were trusting that as professor will be coming, will also help us in that regard. Imartulawo ikumnabelela leswaku bana conference leyinene ingaku Xikwembu xi nga katekisa ibana conference leyi yi nga ta va very fruitful, not long, brief, but iba fruitful, mihandzu ya kona yi lasta until hi ze hi pfula hi tlhelela kambe ekerekeni hi hava hi leswi hi toloveleke ku va swona. Inkomu Mazana.
Inkomu ha khensa president eka address ya n'wina. Ni tshemba xi bele tindleveni ka hina hinkwenu. Eka nkarhi wa sweswi hi ta ya emahlweni program ya hina yi vula leswaku i nkarhi wa ku kuma Bible study. Tanihiloko ni hlamuserile loko hi sungula leswaku Bible study hi ta yi kuma hi our young minister Keto Mongwe. So sweswi i nkarhi wa vona, a hi yingiseleni hinkwaswo leswi nga ta hi dyondzisa swona na ku va na swivutiso kumbe ti-clarifications loko va heta nkarhi wa kona hi wu allocatile. Inkomo, over to you mutotiwa wa Xikwembu.
Inkomu swinene eka mufambisi wa ntirho, ndza khensa ku nyikiwa nkarhi lowu. Ndza xeweta eka mufambisi wa xifundza, eka our spiritual father Reverend Mayayisi, na losa nakambe eka executive ya Madodana ya xifundza xa Mamelodi. Vamakwerhu hinkwenu ndza mi losa, ku rhula ka Xikwembu a ku ve na n'wina.
Na wena u va na kurhula.
Inkomu swinene. Mi ta ni khomela nyana ni nge pfuli video. Network wa ku haleni a ku ndli swona swi nga tsika swi ni phoqa, se ni lava ku hatla ni repa fast swi nga si ni poyila. Vamakwerhu, a hi kumeni Bible study ya hina leyi kumekaka ehansi ka ndzimana leyi nga le ka John chapter 16 verse 33, the meaning of I have overcome the world. In John 16 verse 33, first let us read it so that we can go to the explanatory, and then we dissect each and every part of this passage. Ku hi ta kota ku twisisa leswaku na kahle kahle John a ringeta ku kombisa yini leswi nga vuriwa hi hosi la. Ri hleka hi ndlela leyi. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace in this world. You will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Now, in explanation, Jesus tells us that his yoke, and he tells us to take his yoke and that it will be easy, and that his burden is light, but nowhere does he promise that there will be no external trouble from the fallen world in which we live, or that God won't design for us some refining fire for our good and his glory. Our master and savior suffered greatly at the hands of evil men. In this life, we deal with the trials of sickness, tragedy, natural disaster, and male violence. And yet for the Christian, we're able to walk through it all with peace and purpose. The life that God calls us is wonderful because Jesus has overcome the world. Christ suffers mightily because God called him to suffer. And yet the author of Hebrews says that Christ was anointed with the oil of joy. Here, Jesus promised peace. If we trust him and walk faithfully in our lives through what God has for us, being thankful for every little blessing, we live a life of joy and peace in the presence of God. Now, let us break down the parts of John chapter 16, verse 3. The first part, it is where he says, I have told you these things. I have told you these things. That is the first sentence, and that is the first part. Previously, in the same chapter, Jesus told the disciples that he is leaving them soon, that he would suffer, that they too will suffer, and even that they will all scatter and leave him alone in his greatest hour of need. But he also told them that they would rejoice after mourning for a while. He told them that he would send his Holy Spirit to comfort them and guide them. Aka phati lo sungula la Yesu Kreste a prepare vadyondzisiwa va yena hikuva a ha ku heta ku vulavula na vona aka the very same chapter aka tivhesi leti nga le hansi ka 33 a ha ku heta ku va byela leswaku na u ta va siya ku nga ri khale kambe ku va siyeni ka yena ku ta humelela leswi landzelaka u ta va siya na vona va ta n'wi jikela va n'wi sukela hi nkarhi lowu a nga ta va need the most va ta hangalaka va n'wi sukela a sala a ri wexe. Now then I will continue explaining the second part. The second part is the second sentence that says, so that in me you may have peace. Leswaku aka mina mi ta kota ku va na kurhula. Ndzi ta mi sukela ndzi mi siya mi wexe. Leswaku ndzi ta mi sukela ni mi siya mi ri n'wexe. Na n'wina mi ta ni sukela kambe ku mi sukela ka mina ni mi sukela mi ri ndzexe ndzi mi siya na moya lowu kwetsini. Kusuka ka mina hi leswaku n'wina mi ta kota ku va na kurhula. It was not the information itself that was to bring them peace, although it would help when trouble came for them to remember that Jesus had been prophetic in his warnings. Their peace would be in Christ. Seeking peace anywhere else is a trap. Other methods of finding peace or security only lead to anxiety. The peace we find in Christ is eternal and would stand any circumstances. Vamakweru, Yesu u ri ku va sukela ka yena aka phati ya vumbirhi aka phati yo sungula leswaku va ta kota ku va na kurhula. Aka phati ya vumbirhi yo sungula u ri ni ta mi sukela, ya vumbirhi i ri ku mi sukela ka n'wina hileswaku n'wina mi ta kota ku va na kurhula. Kambe kurhula loko a nge va ta va na kona a va vi na kona hikwalaho ka ku tiva leswaku ta va sukela va ta va na kurhula. Kambe ku va sukela ku va peace kurhula loko va nga ta va na kona va ta va na kona loko va lava kurhula eka yena ntsena, even in his absence. The third part yiri, in this world you will have trouble. Aka misava leyi mi ta va na mikitsikitsi, mi ta va na khombe na nhlomulo, mi ta dya gome mi xava hi nhlomulo, ene hi leswi hi swi vonaka namuntlha. Se wa hlamusela u ri ku mi sukela ka mina leswaku n'wina mi ta va na peace, hikuva laha ka misava leyi mi ta va na gome na mi ta va na trouble. Tanihileswi va nga vula mfundhisi la vavanuna hinkwako loko wo twa leswaku ku na timhaka to karhi ti nga tshamisekangiki, loko i yingisela kahle u ta swi tiva leswaku ku na wanuna nga involved kwalano. Vamakwerhu, put away any false doctrine of prosperity. Make no mistake, seeking the kingdom of God and his righteousness and living wisely unto God will make it highly likely that you will prosper. But no one, Christian or no Christian, avoid trouble in this life if they live very long. A hi tshikeni ku ti khohlwisa nyana ka part 3 i ri nga ta kombisa leswaku a hi tshikeni ku ti khohlwisa nyana hi ti khohlwisa hi ripfumi ra hava leswaku swo vavanuna mi twa n'wanuna ku me ni nhloko ya muti mara vuhloko byako bya muti hi nga byi voni aka ti-actions ta kona ku tlhela ku rhanga yoho nhloko ya muti yi faya ndyangu wa yoho. So now when the head breaks the family, se nhloko i ncila kumbe milenge, se nhloko i mani kwalano. Trouble leyi a hi byelaka ka verse ka part 3 Yesu leswaku ta va na yona i mikitsikitsi leyi namuntlha hlanganaka na yona ya ku mi twa leswaku na loko va ku hala wanuna ku dlayiwe wansati i wanuna, loko va ku hala ku pfinyiwe vana malume a nga pfinya, loko va ku hala namuntlha kereke ya avana a ku rhangi vavasati ku avana ka kereke ku rhanga va tatana. van'wani va voho futhi hi tinyoka hansi, we just influence other people to cause trouble ne tikerekeni. Van'wanyana va voho hi pfuna na ku faya mindyangu ya vanuna kuloni. That is the trouble that is speaking about here. Aka phati ya vunharhu. Tonani ka phati ya vumune. But take heart. Take heart means to guide up your courage or to be encouraged. Jesus' words are meant to embolden us and strengthen our spirit for the fight ahead. Swinkwaswo leswi humelelaka va tata na titshabu leti hinkwato leti swi lava wanuna wa ku va na mbilu. Mi tshame mi twa vavasati va khegula le a switandini xipilongo va ku a hi wanuna lexi, a hi wanuna lexi. Hi mhaka ku nana munhu u kale xizindi xa ku kanya mbilu, a tiva leswaku na loko ndyangu wa yena wu tshika wu tsekatseka, wena wanuna you are the one who should lead ahead. Se na pfala se ni ya ku heteni. Ku twa ka ku vava ka n'wanuna should not break la ka ku se a sungula ku pheni ka ndyangu wu fayeka. Mara hi swi endlisa ku yini? Twana ni ri yini? Take heart, aka part 4. Take heart means to guide up your courage or be encouraged. Jesus' words meant to embolden and strengthen us for our spirit for the fight ahead. Marito ya Yesu lama andle leswaku nana hi ta kota ku tiya, hi tiya not physically, not ti-mycel ya tlakula tinsimbi le gym le ka Planet Fitness le i va na ti-mycel u kota ku ba vavasati, bana vana va ku chava na le ka executive, va ku chava na le zonini, kambe i ku va hi tiya spiritually. Va ku hi mbila xisa lexi mani spirit xa xona xi chava mani, tatana swin'wana mani mi solo wanuna spiritually he's strong, he's emboldened. I tiyisa hi marito ya Kreste. Tatana tiyisa mbilu ya wena hi marito ya Kreste, i va spiritually strong. Na loko COVID yi fika i twa leswaku nsati se na COVID, you will be strong, you'll be able to pray for your wife, you'll be able to pray for your children, you'll be able to pray for your pastors, you'll be able to pray for your church, you'll be able to pray for tukra hina. Loko va vona vo yima spiritually va ku enough is enough, enough with the rape, enough with the abuses, enough hinkwaswo swa madzolonga, enough ku famba mindyangu ya vanhu. Spiritually hi yima mi ta vona swilo swi ta antswa. Now phati ya vuntlhanu, I have overcome the world. When Jesus spoke these words, he had not yet faced his trials in the Garden of Gethsemane. He had not suffered the mocking, beating, spitting, and torture at the hands of the Jews and the Romans. He had not been abandoned by all his fellows. Matunzuka la hela ka ku Yesu anga sina fika la ka ku a yimisiwa mahlo ka Pilato, a chuzisiwa mahlweni ka Pilato, vanhu va vula va vutisa va byela Pilato va ku hi va lava va mbirha va vona. Pilato va vutisa swa aka Barabas na Yesu mi lava leswaku ni mi ntshunxela mani. Ku rhanga va tatana va yima, va tatana Jews va yima, vafundhisi va yima, vakulukumba va kereke va yima, tidekoniya va yima, va ku he wena Pilato hina wo hi ntshunxela Barabas wa hina, a ta vuya ta hi pfinyela swihlangi, a ta hi pfinyela vamanana, a ta hi yivela timovha, a ta hi yivela na timali, a ta hi fela na mindyangu, hi ntshunxeli ye waloyi lava yena. Yesu a va vutisa Pilato se loyi wa Kreste loyi wa Nazareta mi la ni ndla hi yena, va ku waloye a vambiwi, va tlhela va swi nyanyisa va ku ngati ya yena a yi vi a vuton'wini bya hina na vana va hina. That's why mi vona namuntlha hina vana hi hlupekisa hikwalaho ka vatata wa hina lava nga rhanga va hi khensa hi ku kombela ngati ya Yesu yi va ehenhla ka miri ya vona na miri ya hina vana va kona. Namuntlha vatatani va swa boha hikuva va kombela ku ntshunxeriwa Barabas. Se ni la ku gimeta ke swi vula yini leswi aka John 16 verse 33? Yesu a ringeta ku kombela leswaku i lava vavanuna va xifundza, i lava vatatana va xifundza xa Mamelodi swa ku va va na mbilu ya ximoya, hi ku mbilu ya nyama yi navela swo tala, mbilu ya munhu i lwandle nge yi korwisi. Paul risimu leri hi ri yimbelelaka kerekeni hi ku ndza yi sola mbilu ya mina, ndza yi sola mbilu ya mina, ndza yi sola mbilu ya mina, hinkwaswo ya swi lava. Yi lava swo tala mbilu because spiritual mbilu a yi tiyisekangi. Namuntlha ka conference leyi a hi humeni ri va tatana through this Bible study, through the text loko se hi twisisa hi va na mbilu ya ximoya leyi nga tiyisiwa because u hi byerile leswaku ta hi siya kambe a nga hi siyi ri swakwe wa hi siya na moya lowo kwetsima ku hi siya ka yena leswaku ta va na kurhula a tlhela hi tshembisa leswaku hi vafo ku mi sukela ka n'wini ka mina a swi vuli leswaku mi nge vi na minkhinkhi mi nge vi na ti-troubles mi ta va na toho ti-troubles leti kambe vanani na mbilu ya ximoya vanani na mbilu ya ku khongela because if there's a man to pray there's a God to listen. Mfambisi wa ntirho, thank you very much, over to you. Mfambisi va ha ri kona?
Ya va ha ri kona mufambisi. Inkomo hi khensa dyondzo leya matimba leyi hi kumeke hi mfundhisi wa hina our young minister Ketomongwe. Sweswi i nkarhi wa ku va na swivutiso loko swi ri kona na clarifications loko ti ri kona. Mi ta yimisa mavoko, ku na loyi a nga ta mi pfuna ku languta mavoko. Yimisani mavoko leswaku ni ta kota ku vula. Any clarifications? Va ha ri kona mfundhisi Mongwe?
Mr. Pops, Mr. Pops,
Aye.
I just want to make a comment, ne?
Yes.
Yeah. Can I continue?
Yes, proceed, Mr. Koza.
Yeah, no, I cancer dyondole ya matimba leyiwani ya ku tiva leswaku Jesus has overcome the world for us. I think sweswo swi edile Mr. Pops aka weaponry leyi nga na yona hi ri Madodana, ne? Weaponry leyi nga na yona hi ri vakreste. Rifu ra Yesu ri hi tisele matimba lamantshwa. With the blood of Jesus, our sins, the sin, that has caused the world to be broken. Ne? The blood of Jesus has overcome all that. We can now rejoice because we know with any trouble, that confronts us, be it sickness, be it violence, be it diseases, we know we've got a refuge. Inga tsutsumela eka Yesu, hi vitana vito ra yena, and our problems will be resolved. So anoko I buku ya matimba ngopfu tatani Maphope leyi describe ku situation leyi nga ka yona that we are living in a broken world because of sin. But Yesu wa hi assure namuntlha ku I have overcome the world, which is powerful. I think I ditekeleni yona ya ku Jesus has overcome the world. He has added to our artillery, to our weaponry. Kuna ngati ya xinyimpana leyi nga halaka leyi hi pfunaka ku hlula vudyoho. So a hi khomeleleni ka yona, hi khomelela ka rirhandzu leri Yesu a nga na rona for tiko ra hina. Na khensa tatani Maphope na mfundhisi Mongwe with such a powerful lesson. Inkomo.
Inkomo tatana Koza for your comments. Ka ha ri na voko, ni vona tivoko ra tatana Golele.
Yeah, Abshen. I think whether will be a question or a comment, but is it this not a reflection? Is it not a microscopic reflection of the society that we live in currently, and how best can we deal with these challenges, those that are facing the world today? Because it's easy to come, talk, reflect, but what is it that as men in this world, or as men today, are doing and implementing so that what the society is facing today can be dealt with as we move on with life? Nakens.
Inkomo Ngolele, Tanile kumburile ku, you don't know whether it's a comment or it's a question. Yes, it's a little bit broad. Kambe Natsemba, Nashubutu Shikona, what do we do? What is it? What's our intention in this life today that we're going forward with? Natsemba, Ishutwili Inkwen, loko kurna lwanga samlaka kumbe bona mfundisi mongwe vanga ngena va ya mahlweni na dyondzo ya vona va hi guide ku what is it that we are expected as men going forward in this situation ya namuntlha.
Inkomo mfambisi loko no sika ntsema mi ta ni pfuna mara leyi lava hinkwenu hi hlamula mina ni ta yi hlamula hi tlhelo ra ximoya. Kinga leyikulu number 1 leyi hi nga na yona hileswaku va tatana hi endla leswiyani hina le Limpopo hi nge i xihanyanomu. Xihanyanomu i vakreste va ku hi mbala swimbalo bona tha hi saseka hi hlamba hi va kahle. Hi va kahle amahlweni ka mfundhisi le Mamelodi leyi. Hi va kahle amahlweni ka executive ya Madodana ku va ta hi vona leswaku va hi mbalise swimbalo ende xa hi fanela. Mara loko se hi ta muka hi ya le makaya ka hina leyi le ku nga na nsati loyi ni nga n'wi teka n'wamaxalana se va tatana a ya ha endli swona leswaku swa vutatana hi swi portrayaka amahlweni ka vafundhisi. Swimbalo leswi ho mbalela ku impressa vafundhisi. Vukreste bya hina yo va vakreste ku impressa vafundhisi na vafambisi va tizoni na vafambisi va mintlawa. Kambe loko a yo sungula hi endla self introspective hi ku are we in perspective na Kreste wa hina ke? Loko se hi ta kota ku hlamula sweswo se hi ta kota ku swi tiva leswaku loko ni vona n'wana wa wanhwana wa ambale xiketi lexi a va nge i 0 centimeter mini skirt a swi bihangi ku va ambale xiketi lexiyani. Leswi nga biha i maehleketelelo ya mina towards mbalelo ra yena. Se ni vuya ke swi lava vamakwerhu hi tlhela hi ta va practical in this term. If there's a problem hi nga ri a hi khongeleni xikombiso ni ta mi nyika example. A hi nge maybe ku na vana lava va pfumalaka mali ya ku ya atiyunivhesiti va pase kahle. Let us be us va tatana hi tekaku xiboho ku hi ta khoma mukwana hi le vukarhini. I ku ni ta teka xiave na vana va mina na nsati wa mina ku vona leswaku vana lava dyondza xikolo. Because a swi pfuni nchumu munhu a karhi a lava mali ya ku ya dyondza xikolo u n'wi byela ku Yesu i nhlamulo. I nhlamulo muni? Need to and situation hi tiva ku responda ka situations. Inkomo mfambisi.
Ngakhenza mfundisi. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Until
Inkomo ngena doc.
all right. Inkomo. Mfundisi I khensa dyondzo ya matimba swinene. I think mina ni khumbeke la loko mi vula ku ri n'wanuna i fane a khongelela a khongelela ndyangu a khongelela yini. I think kwalano ku na mvulavuro wun'wani a nge worry it's a prayer point. Lero loko ku ri na leswi swi ku vulavulaka swi ku dyaku la ndzeni it's a prayer point. And then loko ni languta verse leyi ni vona swi fambisana hi ku Kreste yena a tivekaka as a solution la ku ri mina Kreste I have overcome. So langutelani ka mina for your solutions. I think that's one point leyi ni nga yi kuma. And then the second one la ya trouble nkarhi yin'wani nga yi byela ku ri nga ku xikwembu a xi kona kumbe a xi na hina kasi xikwembu xa swi kota ku tshika munhu xi tshike Josepha a xavisiwa a hemberiwa a nghena jele na sweswi a nga hluphekisa hi swona mara xikwembu xi kha xi ri na yena. So nkarhi wun'wani ho fanele ti dyondzisa ku loko hi ri na trouble I think I like what somebody said. I'll just end with yona a nge tirhi trouble it's actually an invitation for us to worship. Ta tsundzuka Silas na Paul loko va ri a jele ku ri instead of loko va langutana na trouble lava na a va ri ku worshipeni. Inkomo.
ha khensa dokotela inkomo ka ha ri na va ku rin'wana ni tshemba ahe ni tshemba hi ri covered hinkwenu mfundisi mangena
Yeah, Anuku, yes, thanks, young minister, Fundis Mongwe, Kensana, kuba the women guy dissector corner, that's why Lavina Kumingena, me John this summer, much following, me kota kuba me kombisa in a very structured way, Menga John Sai corner. Thank you very much. We benefited from that. What I've noticed, one of the things that probably yes a ringeta ku va a swi addressa na vadyondzisiwa va yena la i mhaka ku a la ku va tiyisa hi mpela ku as they continue with the ministry na hina hi ri va tatana hi khe hi continue na ministry ya ku va hi ri Madodana hi khe hi ri ku tirheni ko tala a wu kuma leswaku Yesu a endla swilo a va nga titsoni. You'll remember ku vadyondzisiwa va Yesu a ku tshama ku khe ku dyiwa tifishi, ku dyiwa wayini, loko ku laveka xinkwa producer, ku laveka imali or gold a vitana fish, ku humesiwa golidi ka fish ya hakela tax and all that. So in another way, he was always trying to show them that that is not the only thing that comes the package later as ministry. There will be some of the things that will be very challenging to the core, that they might even sometimes, like what happened to Peter, loko se arika corner. Hey, I don't know this man. And the avikwaka corner hi xinhwanyatani xitsongo ku na wena muse a wu famba na yena. Now things are swi cincile, so a ringeta ku va a va tiyisa na vona indeed as a khe twele mfundhisi Bongo va hi kombisa ku a va tiyisa timhaka ta ku please swi tiveni ku I've overcome as much as mi ta va mi ri ka that corner, and indeed the trouble leyi va nga kumana na yona yi fambise the challenge, the suffering and the grief leyi va nga kumana na yona a yi vangi ntsena. A va ku loko va tshamile va twa ku un'wana u tsemiwe nhloko halaya mudyondzisiwa, va twa grief ya ku un'wana mudyondzisiwa ka the 12 a nga ha ri kona, because you remember aka va the disciple va 12 very un'we ntsena loyi a nga hanya malembe yo tala. The rest they were on the corner va heta va attackiwa to extend whereby van'wana a va lava ku va vambiwa ku fana na Yesu leswi a nga vambisa swona. They asked ku please mi nga hi vambi, it will be disgraceful ku mi dlaya leswi mi nga dlayisa swona Yesu. Ni kombela leswaku mi ni yisa ehansi, nhloko yi languta hansi, mi ni dlaya mi tlhava milenge ya hala henhla ku nga vi swa xihambano, because it's the only one who came to die like that. So yes, a va prepare sweswo, and I think tani mfundhisi Mongo u vule na point yin'wana ya ku we need to know ku God will say seek me first and all these things will follow. And sometimes because of that we think, okay, loko all these things follows, it's only those things that are only okay. But as we live, we will live in a place where our kids sometimes will have challenges because of our kids not doing well at school. And in our life, a place where we come together, say, not challenge and make a trouble. Panamina, they're not doing well. Sana swin'we as batatan not challenge swilo avukati na swilo ku fambeni kahle, ingaku I'm heading for divorce or I'm heading for a serious situation that will separate me from my family. We must pray together and they nga be judgmental ku maybe so umelela hi mhaka ku wena u endle leswi vana wa wena va le ku endleni because of this and this, but we must I think leswi tatani Golela va vutisaka swona, how do we move forward after this conference? We must all at the material time come together and pray together and move and even share resources in terms of whether it's a wisdom resources or financial resources or whatever, so that we move to the next level. Yes, I've overcome, because it will be like that. I'm reminded as I conclude in Mfambisi, Mark 10:29. It says, loko a byela vadyaku a encourage vadyondzisa ku hinkwavo lava tshikaka vana va vona, va tshikaka tifamily, va tshikaka tiyindlu ta vona, vamakwavo va ta aka mina, they will get 100-fold. But a heta hi point yin'wana a ku, but as much as loko u tshikile u ta kuma vamakwavo va more, u ta kuma voboti va more, loko u ta ka mina u ta kuma vatswari va more, loko u tshikile va wena hikwalaho ka the ministry. And then I could, but know that all those things, loko mi came mi tshika ku tshama ka tiyindlu ta kahle, mi ta ka ministry and all, ni ta mi nyika even more tiyindlu, but you'll have trouble. And that line I lay lavaka ku va hi twa hina vamakwerhu, and it takes also us, as I conclude, ka mhaka ya Job. Ku Job a ri munhu loyi a ti vona a tirhela Xikwembu kahle, a endla hinkwaswo, but u ve a hlangana na ti-trouble leti nkarhi wun'wani se a ti dila na the core ya ripfumelo ra yena. So in all this, Madodana, we must always know that the troubles will come, as much as hi karhi hi tirhela Xikwembu, as much as hi ri va Kreste. But what it must be important aka hina i ku va hi va more devoted to Christ. Hi leswi vo Peter va nga hlurisa swona, to Christ loyi a ngo I have overcome. Because if we are devoted ka kereke, if we are devoted ka baji ya Madodana, if we are devoted ka Mfundisi Mayayisi, if we are devoted ka Epcsa or ka whatever else, when the trouble comes, tita ku endla leswaku u gweneya, tita endla leswaku u tlhelela ndzhaku. But when you are devoted to Christ himself, who says, I have overcome, then you know that in you, you have got the overcomer. Even whatever situation, the trouble that we are facing, laying ataka ile tatani Ben Kwasababla ekona, ya makaya shido, ya makaya grief, ya makaya suffering, because of several things, you remain committed to the cause until to the end. So indlela leyo, I encourage again, it was such a eye-opener, Mfundisi Mongwe, as you have unpacked it, the dynamics total, but we will go as we continue na conference here, Presbyter, to be reflecting on it and implementing and living with it. Inkomo chairperson. Sorry,
inkomo Mfundisi ha khensa swinene leswi mi swi vuleke hinkwaswo, na ku hi nyika go ahead miehleketo leswaku hi kota ku ti prepare, hi tshama hi kha hi swi tiva ku ri hi ya kwihi. We are actually running behind the scheduled time hi 25 minutes, kambe sweswi hi ta kombela Mfundisi nakambe ku va vona lava va nga ta introduce our guest speaker namuntlha, Professor Tim Raudzi, leswaku loko va ta nghena hi va hi kha hi va tiva. Over to you again. Unfortunately, Mfundisi, over to you again. Mi ta hi introducela our guest speaker of the day. Inkomo.
Inkomo swinene, Mfambisi hi khensa ku va hi ri na our expert is now, she's a consultant. Loko va ku u consulted, you are a counselor. She's an expert in the field, psychology. Professor Mrauzi, also Jofro, and a professor in University of Venda. For many years, by producing my psychologist Yotal. Also, we Nemenantalan Ban Katekele ko Jofro, but by family. So we are really blessed to have you, Prof, this morning, and we trust that God will use you in this troubled world where we found ourselves because of the COVID-19. We are hitting, as I speak now, we just have a crisis in where I'm staying. There's a young man who just passed on the COVID-19. He's just built a multi-million house, and we got this thing this evening that is no more Kwalashtaradin. So we are all really affected, when it's happening around the corner as the Kaneba, and then you see that these things, it's not in the news, it's really happening. So we are not very, very stable, and we come in a place where we've just seen where we have lost our loved one and all that. So our mind really, it's always in another place. So we trust the Prof that with your session, it will be really a counseling tool. May God bless you as you give us the session. Inkomo.
Inkomo, mfundisi. Sweswi i nkarhi wa ku yingisela Professor Shilidzi Mulaudzi. Feel free, Prof, to say everything. Nga languti nkarhi loko yi ku behind the schedule, ngaba behind the schedule, but for you as the guest speaker of the day, you have ample time the way we have prepared everything. Inkomo, over to you.
Inkomo mfambisi, mi rhandza ku mi losa na ku mi xeweta hinkwerhu hi vito ra matimba ra hosi yena Yesu Kristo, ku rhula ka Xikwembu ku ve na n'wina. Ni ta ya ni ya share the screen lexi xi nga na presentation, so ni kombela xinkarhana nyana xa ku ni share the screen. Mi ta ni indicate loko ku ri ku se xa vonaka.
Inkomo, se xa vonaka, xi vona?
Inkomo, ni rhandza ku khensa na invitation and also the introduction that was done by Reverend Mayayise. I really want to thank you very much. The topic for today is Men's Road to Emotional Wellness in the midst of two deadly pandemics, which are COVID-19 and gender-based violence. The reason for looking at the two is because we know that both these pandemics have serious concern for public health, and we now call even gender-based violence a pandemic because it has moved from the stage of being an epidemic. It is no longer found in one geographical area. It is now, experienced globally. So that's why it is now a pandemic. So when we look at gender-based violence, we are talking about any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will and which is based on socially ascribed to gender differences between males and females, and which in most cases, men are the ones who are perpetrators of this violence against women and children. And it can also be perpetrated by intimate partners, former partners, and even the people that we just know whom we are friends with. And sometimes it can be perpetrated by strangers and even the different institutions that we find ourselves in. But now that we are talking about the COVID-19, we're talking about gender-based violence in the midst of COVID-19, which is a pandemic that is foreign to us. No one has experienced before of COVID-19. We all got to know about it in 2020 or towards the end of 2019, but most people got to know about it in 2020. So it brought a lot of changes on the way we do things. But then we also see that there are some good practices that we have learned through our experience of COVID-19. And during the high rate of COVID-19 infections, different governments had to brought some restrictions in order to curb the spread of the disease. Even South Africa has also participated in coming up with different restrictions and regulations so that, you know, the disease does not spread as much and as quickly as it could. And one of the restrictions when it started was the lockdown alert level 5, in which case most people had to stay and work from home. And that's the period where we were just forced. It was not like voluntary. We were forced to be at home 24/7. Sorry about that. So we found ourselves having to deal with the new way of living, the new way of doing things. But then when we look at the lockdown level 5 and also moving to other levels, we found that it's not 100% bad at all. There are some advantages of the lockdown that was imposed. I will use the word imposed because we did not take part in, you know, the decision. So it was imposed on us, and we had to oblige. But in the process, we found that many institutions have saved a lot of money on traveling, including our churches, our church, you know, on traveling and rental of office space, electricity, water, and so many things that we used to do on a daily basis before COVID-19. And we also learned to be innovative. You know, we hold our meetings remotely. In the past, I would have to travel now from Limpopo to Gauteng in order to do this presentation. And now we have our funerals, weddings, and other events that are streamed live through different platforms. So these are the innovative ways that they were there, but we never used them, or we rarely used them because we believed in the normal or the traditional way in which we were doing things. Currently, we are able to connect with families that are very far. Others are, you know, overseas, but now we can, you know, connect with them and chat with them through Zoom and other online platforms. So when now we are in lockdown, where we are supposed to stay with our families most of the time, or from morning to evening, evening to morning, so it's like 24 hours 7, we began to appreciate the personalities of our family members, because some of them, it could be a spouse, it could be a child. We did not know their personalities as much as we do now, because in the past it would be like you get up in the morning, you go to work if you are employed, or wherever you would be going, return in the evening. Our children would get up and go to school, they come back late, and we don't even have time. It could be maybe 1 hour where we could say we spend time together. But now we spend more than 12 hours when we are awake with each other. So we got to know them better. We got to know things that we did not know about them. So to some, it was an advantage. But then we also have to look at the disadvantages of the lockdown at different levels that we have been exposed to. During the lockdown periods, and even now, it's difficult to visit our friends and relatives. And also, it is now not easy to visit our loved ones who are sick and those who are in the hospitals. And also, the worst cases are where we fail to attend the funeral services of our friends, relatives, and family members. The other challenge that was brought by the COVID-19 with the lockdown alert levels, and it was the issue of employment. Some organizations were going down on business, and they decided to lay off some of their employees. Others, the salaries were cut, and you find that now it's something that happened unexpectedly. We never know that in 2020, 2021, you could lose a job because of a certain pandemic. So these are some of the disadvantages. And there are people who, each and every festive season, they would travel, go on holiday with their families, with their friends. It could be nationally, it could be internationally, but that practice had to come to an end. And having spoken about, families appreciating staying together during lockdowns, there are some family members who got bored to be with their family 24 hours, 7 days a week. They became irritated, and they just felt it's something that they couldn't continue. It was like now they were suffocating by staying with families under the same roof. And when that happens, it made families to now drift apart due to the strain that they were experiencing, due to the constant arguments, constant fights, because we found ourselves experiencing the togetherness, which was very tight. We were used to, going out, coming back, we are together for 2-3 hours, we eat, watch TV, go and sleep. But to be seeing same people from morning until evening, and when you wake up, it's the same faces, they are not going anywhere. It became a problem to some people, some, got into a situation where they no longer have anything to say to their family members. Like, you talk about these issues, these stories, you watch television, you make some comments up to a point where you feel you no longer have anything to say. So these are the challenges that we have experienced, or our communities have experienced during the lockdown. And unfortunately, we are looking at the lockdown caused by COVID-19, but in life there are other circumstances which would keep people on lockdown. It's just that maybe for some time we never thought about it, that you have this family member who is wheelchair bound. Obviously, their movement is restricted. They cannot go to any place anytime they want. Some are on lockdown because of ill health. Some are on lockdown because of financial challenges. So I'm just naming the few so that we can, try and think about other things that can also keep us on lockdown. And since we are saying being on lockdown, it's very stressful, it is taxing us emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially. Just to sum it up, lockdown has affected all spheres of life, and it has caused a lot of stress among community members and family members. So sometimes, a person can be under house arrest due to the crime that they might have committed and are sentenced to house arrest. So it's also another form of lockdown, which due to, this lockdown, we can find ourselves exposed to. And when we are on lockdown, due to any of the circumstances that I've mentioned or that I did not mention, it does not mean that the family members, who in this case could be your wife, your partner, your children, will also be in solidarity and be on lockdown. They will go in and out when they have to. And when that happens, the one that is in the house, the one that is on lockdown, would not feel good about it. That's when you find issues of violence come in. Now, we can look at the forms of gender-based violence that are perpetuated against females, because it is during the lockdown periods that we began to see an increase in violence against women and children. So I will briefly highlight the forms of gender-based violence that is, perpetuated against females. We have the physical violence. I will not go deep into it. And we have the violence that we usually do not talk about it. I don't know what's the reason. I'm just thinking about it now that I forgot to indicate it. It's the skewed sex ratios. With this one, you find that especially, as men, you would prefer a boy child to a girl. we neglect female children. When you have a boy and a girl, you know, sometimes the female child is being neglected. And sometimes when you find your partner, your wife is pregnant, you know, where the pregnancy is unplanned, or even if it is planned, then you find that there are illnesses or there are some defects that medical practitioners are able to see during the pregnancy, and they advise that the pregnancy needs to be terminated. More often than not, if it is the sex of the unborn baby, it's male, the father would have more problems than if the sex of the unborn baby was a girl. Meaning that even those who would say to a female or a wife or a partner who falls pregnant and it was not planned, then they would say they want her to do abortion. They will first want to know what is the sex of the child. If it is a boy, they might not, you know, advise them to do abortion. But if it is a girl, they could easily say, you know, you can do abortion. And we know what the Bible says about that. It's a topic for another day. So what I'm trying to say is just to show the way in which we lean more on supporting our male children than female children. And the other violence, it's sexual violence, which, you know, most of men are culprits, because when we talk about getting consent for sexual intimacy, legally, each time you want to engage in sexual activities, you need to get consent. But most of the times, or maybe usually, what happens always is that once a woman gives you consent, or your wife or your partner gives you consent once, especially the first time, that consent, you take it as if it is now applicable to future times that you will be with her. But to be honest with you, situations where female partners, situations where a wife would report you for rape, it stems from the fact that you did not consent for the sexual activity, because we believe that if I was given permission on day one, it means that permission is valid for as long as this relationship is in place, whereas that is not the case. But also, it is not easy to be asking for permission each time, you know, so this is, you know, a catch-22 situation. But I just thought it's something we need also to talk about, that, you know, permission is very important. You need to get permission. Then if that was done, then we would also have a reduced number of cases of rape, even from, you know, husbands and wives, from intimate sexual partners. the numbers will, because you would know if you ask for permission and they say no, no is a no, and then you would know how to behave when the response is no. Then we have verbal, where, you know, you insult, you call them names, and, you know, things like you are stupid and all those things. And stalking is when you follow a person, but in this case, we will talk about you as men following a woman without her knowledge, without her approval. Wherever she goes, you are there hiding behind whatever, but just observing her movements and so forth. With economical, it's when we, you know, you keep, okay, there are those who would agree in families that the husband will keep all the monies, but there are times when money is kept by the husband against the wife's will. That's when we have problems. Then we also have psychological, when you ill-treat them in different ways and you undermine them, you don't consult them when you do things, and so forth. Then lastly, I mean, there are so many different forms. I just picked a few. That's when we find men having sexual relationships with girls that are younger than 18. And the worst cases are when they even marry them. And also you find they get married to a girl who is same age as their own children, or some would be younger than your own children. So that would be, you know, one form of violence that is perpetuated against females. And these forms of violence do take place at different contexts. They don't take place at home only, but they also do take place, you know, at workplace, at church. We have these cases, and even in our communities. So here is just a brief statistics. I could not get the update, but I'm using the 2009 census. They should be the recent statistics. But during that time, it was found that, you know, 1,024 females were murdered by an intimate partner who could be a husband. And 768 were killed by non-partners. So it could be people whom they did not know, or they are people that are just in the community, or their friends, and so forth. So at that time, the statistics were showing that more than half of women that were killed, it was it was caused by intimate partners, who could be the husband, or, you know, and or the partner. So the very same study that was conducted, they found that 1 in 5 women get killed. So you could see that it means our females are not safe in our communities, because if you have 5 women, it translates to say one of them might die in the hands of a male partner, or in the hands of the husband. Then what causes this violence against women? And we found that there are different issues that that have been observed. For example, patriarchal power structures that dominate in many societies, in which male leadership is seen as a norm and men hold majority of power. And you would agree with me that even in, you know, at church, if you look at the management structure, how many females are there? in different organizations, you look at management structures, how many females are there. So this is one of the things that, you know, we tend to see or believe that these structures, it's their right for men to dominate even females. And patriarchy is also a social and political system that treats men as superior to women. And where you find that women cannot protect themselves, they can't protect their bodies, they have to meet their basic needs, they have to fully participate in society. And, you know, this, when you look at it, we find that at some point there are women, there are men who always, because of the position they possess in maybe in their workplace or in their community, or, you know, they possess a higher ranking position. So wherever they go, they want to be respected. What they say, they want it to be done. But you find that their behavior doesn't warrant them to be given such a respect. So, having said that, we can conclude that all forms of violence and against women and children stem from the unequal power relations that exist between men and women. So you could be asking yourself, why are we talking about the COVID-19 and gender-based violence? And you know, there are similarities between the two pandemics because they are both illnesses. Gender-based violence is also an illness, and both of them, they need treatment, they need support, you know, and prevention. And as we have all seen that with COVID-19, it can be contracted, you know, the virus, the coronavirus can be contracted by anyone because it does not have respect for a person's position in the community, the race, socioeconomic status, gender, and age. Like now, when Reverend Maise was doing the introduction, he mentioned a young man who had just passed on, and he indicated that he had just built a multi-million rand house, which means that, like I'm saying, it does not have respect of age. When we were in the first and second wave, it was, you know, COVID-19 was taking those who were about 65 and above, and we sat comfortably thinking that it was the disease of those who are in their late 60s and upwards. But now the third wave is telling us that it is not like that. Anyone can contract and can live this world. So we are seeing that now with the beginning of the third wave, that, you know, our youth are also now dying of COVID-19 complications. So is gender-based violence. It does not respect you, who you are. You know, you can have this illness. You could occupy a very high position at work, a high position in the community. You could be well respected, but they may complain about one thing, violence, because if we don't, do something about it, you find that we raise children who will, become violent when they grow up. So in the extreme, these two can result in death. COVID-19 has killed so many people. Gender-based violence also has killed so many people. So as we look into different interventions that we could come up with to eradicate the two pandemics, we shouldn't forget about divine intervention. Yes, we cannot rely, on the other interventions only. As we go for other interventions, even the divine one, we shouldn't forget about it, because it is the one that when we are faced with situations that on our own we might not succeed in eliminating them from the society, we really need to ensure that we don't forget divine intervention. So what happens is, when we talk about gender-based violence, or when before a person commit violence, you would start by getting angry, because you cannot be violent when you are not angry. You have to be angry first, and then you commit violent acts. And there are some physiological signs of anger. So these are the things that you yourself would know that, hey, now it's like I'm getting angry, and you need to take some action before you do something wrong or something that you might regret. If you are in a situation or a heated argument, or you've seen something, or you've heard about something, and you start shaking, and maybe you feel a bit dizzy, and you grind your teeth unconsciously, and when your hands start sweating, your heart rate increases, you develop a headache or stomach ache. These are some of the symptoms that will tell you that you are now becoming angry. And because when we are angry, we would react differently. You know yourself that when I'm angry, this is what happens. So when these physiological signs begin to appear, you need to make sure that you take action, action that will make, or actions that will prevent you from being violent. And there are certain situations that would trigger anger. We live under a lot of stress, like I indicated. Even lockdown itself, it brought a lot of stress amongst us. So the family and work problems, financial problems, extramarital affairs, and emotional investments that you have in the relationship or in the marriage, when they don't go right, they can make you angry. And also there are some disorders such as alcoholism and depression, which would trigger anger. But the worst scenario is when we jump into conclusions before investigating the matter and take action thereafter. This is the most serious problem with most of us, because we lack self-management. When you hear things, you see things, you jump into conclusion. I will just give you an example of a woman who was killed because, you know, when the HIV and AIDS pandemic was very serious, then there were different workshops, just like with COVID-19, different workshops, and people will go there and attend the workshops. So this woman went and attended the HIV workshop, and they were handed some condoms, just like now with COVID-19, where they will hand us, you know, sanitizers to use. So she put it in her handbag, and then she told a friend that, you know, after the meeting, after the workshop, I'll give you this condom, because at home we don't use it. We don't use condoms. So after the workshop, this woman forgot to give a friend the condom. So some few days later, the husband wanted some money from the wife. And she just said, no, in my handbag, take so much. So this man went to open the handbag. He was given the permission to do so. So after opening the handbag, trying to get the purse and the money that he wanted, he ran into that condom. Instead of coming back with the money, he comes back holding that condom, and he was now insulting, fighting, you know, why are you having this? It means you're cheating on me, and all those things. And this woman tried to explain how the condom finally got into her handbag and what the plan was. And she even mentioned the name of the friend to say, I was going to give it to so-and-so, it's just that I forgot. But, you know, all that explanation fell in deaf ears. And unfortunately, this man had a gun. Then he used it, he just shot her once, and she died on the scene. Then after that, he wanted now to clear his conscience. He calls the friend just so that maybe the friend would not know anything about the condom story, so that now he could feel better that, yeah, this woman was cheating and all those things. When he called the friend collaborated with the story to say, this is what had happened. He did not tell her that this is what he did. He just asked her, how did the workshop go and all those things. And this woman said, hey, and you know, your wife owes me. She was supposed to have given me the condom and all those things. So this man was a religious man. He belonged to some church, and when he was arrested, he had to tell his minister that this is what actually happened. So you can see just a condom brought problems in the family, where the man had to kill the wife. And unfortunately, when he was in prison, he couldn't live with what he did. One day they found him hanging in a cell. So 2 lives were lost because of a condom. Children remained orphans because of a condom. And their deaths also have impacted on the country's economy, because they were all employed, working, and so forth. So we need to try. It's not easy. This is something that we need to just teach ourselves to investigate matters, and before we could even take action. So I will briefly talk about the psychological impact of gender-based violence. What happens when a person is being when a person gets different receptions from the loved one, would be a male partner or a husband, and then they experience these acts of violence. So this is what you need to know, that if you are not treating the wife or the partner very well, and you ill-treat them, this is what will happen to them. It does interfere with the daily activities, including behavioral problem. It means they are not going to behave in an acceptable manner. And somebody that is experiencing violence, you will see them by always angry, then they show anger outbursts, they have low self-esteem, they get irritated easily, they don't concentrate. You talk to them, they would not, they would have difficulty in concentration. And also you have a moderate, where it's another level of the symptoms of violence. This person would suffer from anxiety disorders, they would suffer from PTSD. Some would even result in abusing substance, including alcohol, and they would also forget things. They could no longer remember most of the time things that they need to do, things that they were told, and so forth. And in the severe case, they would suffer from depression and mood disorders and hallucinations. And depression always causes suicide. Some will think about it, some will attempt, and some will finally succeed in attempting the suicide. So now, how do we fight against gender-based violence during this period of pandemic? Since we indicated that gender-based violence and COVID-19 with its lockdown alert levels, these are illnesses that need treatment, support, and prevention. And we know that we act differently to stress, and others would resort to violence, others to drug and alcohol, and in some cases, others would kill the wife and the children and even themselves. So, but it is, we all know and appreciate that everybody would want to live in harmony with the families. But because of the personality and the way we do things, we find most of the time we no longer live in harmony. We are always fighting. We are always violent against them. So we have to identify sources of stress and anger through self-introspection, because you need to know what is it that causes me to be angry, and when I'm angry, I become violent. So it has to come from us, as men. We need to know what is it that makes me angry, and like what is the cause of the stress, or what is the cause of the that's when, once you are able to identify those, you would know where you need to go and seek for help. I'll give you another example of something that I've read. This woman, the husband was very violent, and she indicated that he used to go to a casino, and when he goes to the casino, the day he wins and when he loses a lot of money, he would not tell her, and she wouldn't have to ask. but she would know. He would come back whenever he comes back from the casino. And when they go to bed, she would know that, okay, today he won, because of the way in which he would be tender and everything, and showing, love and affection. But the day he loses, she would know, because when he comes home, he will be very violent, angry, and all those things. So we need to ensure that we go for treatment, and we have to support each other to prevent the violence that is perpetuated against the females and children. We have issues of anger management where, you depending on your own situation and how prevalent and deep your anger outbursts are, you may, you may want to go for treatment, because you don't want a situation where, for example, your in-laws utter statements like, we were very happy when this man came to our family to say he wants to marry our children, because he portrayed himself as a gentleman, as a Christian, and as a church minister. So we thought our child would be in good hands. But so you find the opposite is the case. So once you do self-introspection, you would know the source of the anger, the source of the stress, and then you go to relevant institutions for assistance. So with anger management, you may want to attend anger management classes where they teach you different skills. And also there are so many self-help books that you can read and learn, not forgetting that our situations are different and our contexts are different, but somehow they will be able to assist you. And the other thing is just to improve on our communication. When there is a matter, there's a way in which you would sit down with your wife, with your partner, and talk about it. And you also be a good listener. In that way, you would be improving on this anger outbursts, on the violence, because if you sit down with a person and you become a good listener, there is no way in which you could be violent when you are, it's like water and petrol, which do not mix. You cannot be a good listener and at the same time you are violent. When you are a good listener, it means you would have time to listen and digest things. And the other thing also, you may, if you know that you have a problem, with violence, if you learn to carry out activities with your wife, with your partner, like you go jog together and you do cooking, you assist here and there, they will be cooking, you'll be chopping onions, they go shopping, you are with them. This, also assist in improving the relations, and also in a way they would be eliminating the violence. You may not be a violent person, but there are certain things that would happen which would make you become violent, and they would also be surprised, like they don't know you to be this. But if you focus on these positive actions, then you may find until your dying day you not have even once violated the rights of somebody else, or not have acted violently towards somebody else. And also, we also need to learn to drop old issues. If there is an issue today, we talk about it, we put it to rest. You shouldn't, 10 years from now, you come back and you say, okay, this is what happened. You should after 2 years, 3 years, I'm still reminded about that issue, because obviously, even if it was handled well that time and then it was put to rest, if it resurfaces after some time, obviously the way once it resurfaces, it means it was not dealt with in a way that you were satisfied and you couldn't say it then, or you just want to pick up a fight or something like that. But we also want to believe that everybody wants to live in harmony. And also you need to have timing to discuss issues. You know, when there is an issue to be discussed, you cannot wait until you go on holiday and as you are driving or when you are in the aircraft, that's when you talk about that issue. It's not the right place and the right time. So we need to know, or you start talking about, you know, you raise certain issues just before intimacy. Already you have gone to bed and then the wife has started touching you, then you start talking about something which you are not happy with. It's not done. You can't do it. Or immediately after you've made love, then you bring this issue. I think you know what I'm talking about. So there are different sources of support that we can go for and get assistance. And you know where the stress comes from, where the problem is. So you consult depending on the source of the problem. You have mental health professionals, we have financial advisors, we have our friends, families and relatives and partners, you know, who would assist us, and NGOs, and there are CBOs that you can go to. You know, there are men's organizations where men assist each other on a number of things, including the issue of gender-based violence. And we have our own churches. But then, having said that, you shouldn't waste your time by going there knowing that you may not practice what you have learned, which will assist in, you know, bringing harmony in the family. And you know, we always talk in psychology that behavior is learned, you know. So if you try and be a good husband, a good father, if you have male children, and even the neighbors, the way they see you treating your wife, your partner, they learn that women are supposed to be treated with dignity. But if you treat them otherwise, that's what they will also learn. And that's what they will do as they become men. They know that the woman is nothing in the family. And the very same things that we'll be doing, they will do that. Like the white man would say, an apple doesn't fall far from its tree. It is not very easy that if you treat your wife, then your children will treat their wives differently. So you may also want to I talked about consulting different structures and individuals, but you need to go to reputable ones, because you know there are those that when you go there you come back being worse. So you shouldn't just go to any institution that would, you know, present themselves as being able to assist. And also, you may want to, as a way of prevention, you may want to take vitamins and supplements like vitamin B complex. And we most of the time, you know, undermine the role that is played by food, the food that we eat, the multivitamins and supplements, they assist in increasing the body's resistance to life stresses. So these are the things that would assist us in reducing the violence against women and children. So as I conclude, I would indicate that gender-based violence will touch on every sphere of life, and it requires multifaceted responses and commitments from all stakeholders, which would include our government, our society, our church, and our families and other citizens. And as men, we need to be role models to our families and community, because if I were to give one last example of a situation where and now this one is coming to our church ministers, you'll have to pardon me, Reverend Maya is being a minister, the community looks up to you, especially when there are problems in families. The congregants would run to our church ministers when they have problems, and so it shouldn't be a situation where if I were to be beaten up, then I ran to my church minister, my priest. When I get there, the minister's wife, the Efro, would be saying, I don't know how my husband is going to handle this, because he is also involved in violence. So how would you offer counseling about gender-based violence when in the house you are also violent to the family members? So that's why I'm saying we also need to be role models. And as men, people want to respect us, but we must earn the respect based on our behavior. So it is our responsibility to save lives. I thank you.
Inkomo hakenza swinene eka professor dyondzo leyi va hi nyikeke yona leyi ngheneke etindleveni ta hina, na tshemba vo tala wa hina yi tlhe yi tshama na timbilwini ta hina, leswaku hi ta kota ku dyondza hi ya emahlweni hi timhaka leti va hi tiviseke tona ta the two deadly pandemics. Hi ku languta nkarhi sweswi a hi fanele hi nghena ka clarifications, hi ngo nyika wun'we ntsena loyi a nga commentaka hikuva se nkarhi wu hisile, wun'we ntsena loyi nga commentaka kumbe a vula swin'wana. Inkomo, a hi yimise voko.
Tatana Masiya va yimise voko.
Oh, Inkomo, over to you, Tatana Masiya. Senior.
Avuxeni vakulukumba, avuxeni Professor Jufro, Winkensili dyondzo ya n'wina. I just want to make a brief comment hi ku tsundzuxa vamakwerhu. Jufro swi nga endleka mi nga ni tivi, mehe ni un'wana wa swikhalabyanyi swa kwala kerekeni ya hina, ni over 65. So xitsundzuxo xa mina hi lexi varikwerhu ne. I think the biggest challenge la mindyangwini he said something in passing. Baku utakuma wako lisha ngwanuna, and I want to just flag that comment and what it reflects in society. And then I want to go to what Tatan Golele said. Kuri, in these times that we are living, how do we deal with it? And I want to just flag that as well to anchor my comment. My comment is this. I think if Aniku ringeta hi matimba swinene to understand how the world around us is changing. In a relationship with the women in our lives, whether in Sati or it's just a girlfriend or Siteka, we must understand kuloko hihlanganise yini, how was the relationship? And we must understand how that changes as soon as the bond is formed. She will stand the ground, the power dynamic changes. And we need to be aware of that. Because they behave the same all the time. You could have a stage, baba, really an equal partner. Logo after Sungulangtan. In an ideal situation, I think we should start as equals and die as equals. There should be no power dynamic here. So that's the one thing. The other thing that I want to talk about, and was kumbil in passing, impact the position. It's a power dynamic here, the achievements. So whether it's a position that you gain in life or material accumulation. So because say Imagagu wena se principal le kumbe iwe head of department or whatever that position is. Astir lakaya ununa utatani. And if they differ with your mindset or your views, swan is kumati kosuento fanate or talimtre. You must understand that manga wrong. So, if you want to dig heels into your perspective, your point of view, and your understanding of things, because that's what you have been exposed to. Sinangos is success. Laga material lanbula kona iku se sajinja dynamic ya bushaka between husband and wife namashaka yangwina kwa angarela. You must be very careful when you silly with financial means. I go afford the one of it's so easy to happen. And one way to avoid it is how you choose your friends. Achievements, not accumulation. You are actually a team with the person in your life. So let us take a more maswa as says the company that we keep. So nuna karunga sa na ina nga kwa Madodana kwa kuva this macho mindset and macho talk all the time until slowly dawe queen kumshari yo society ne mikuma kaya valavuli kahle swi hi chela moya ntungu nyana loko so fika kaya munhu luya hi langutela ku i munhu wa kahle hi n'wi hloniphaku ku he tatani masiya kasiya va n'wi chele ntungu vavanuna kulobye kolomo a fambaku kona. So hi ti languteleni vamakwerhu ne material accumulation yi nga onha vuxaka lebyi hi nga na byona hi sungula ku hleketa ku affording vana va vanhu. And na swilo leswi hi hlanganaka na swo hala handle swi vulavula swa vanuna kuloni swi nga vuyi la kaya la swi affecta, and it can happen to anyone. Inkomu loko ku ri na nkarhi ni ta vulavula swo tala masiku ni kha ni hanya nyana. And a ni vuli ku mina ni na me nga ni na xikhalabyanyi xa ha ri ku na xa ha kafaku laha na laha. I'm just sharing. Inkomu.
Inkomo Tatana Masiya. Natsemba.
Oh, sorry. I know which person by himself. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Chairperson. Tatana Mnis.
Inkomu Tatana Mapap. In Ranzak Cancer ka Professor Mlaudzi for the wonderful presentation. I think we didn't do justice to ourselves by limiting the conference to 2 hours. But yes, there is justification for that, Kuri. But one banner limited data and all those things. But the issues that have been raised or that were raised in the presentation are issues that we also dealt with in our final Super Tuesday last year. And one of those things from what I've heard, Madodana Kuloni, or even friends and colleagues, Professor Mlaudzi, and I hope I'm invited one day just to expand this discussion, because kuna this thing here, women are known as emotional creatures. Then, but look, I go shout, what do you do? So we normally hear those kind of stories. She shouted at me. For those who are learned in the field, it sounds like emotional abuse. Then the men retaliate by physically. You retaliate physically, and those are some of the things. So a police station, you end up by one statistic. Your tatanama pop, ubensat. But the other shouting, yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying when you are being shouted at, you must retaliate, or it's local or retaliate physically. Then it's justification for your actions. But we need to deal with these things, because they are confronted with this kind of situations. Someone says you must run away. Then how many times are you going to run away? In winter, so it's going to lock down. Some people will run away, go to a bar, have a drink, come back and sleep. But is that a solution? So we need to look at those kind of things. How do people get support? It could be you don't want to discuss with your family members, or you are not comfortable discussing with your friends. What kind of other support where you can get someone who will look at your case objectively without judging you? You go look tatama papa abzela tatanamnis isonto ahlangana utanamanana mapop, and then he may think, you know what, I'm uncomfortable because we look like this happy couple, whereas we have issues at home. Sorry, Gujankar, but I was just saying, even if we don't deal with this right now, in the future, we will invite Professor Kurno. Let's sit down and let's look at this and help others and help ourselves. I'm not saying, Mina, I'm immune to that kind of those kind of issues. But income a cancer presentation.
Inkomo mfambisi a cancer comment ya n'wina a ni lavi ku vula leswaku a hi nga allocate-angi loyi a nga ta cancer professor, kambe hi xiyimo xa n'wina mufambisi mi khensile presentation leyi nga yi kuma. Inkomo swinene professor, tanihileswi va vuleke van'wana va textile sweswi ku hi kunenenene swa laveka leswaku mi vuya hi ta mi invite leswaku hi va na tinghamu ta hina mi ta hi dyondzisa timhaka ta the healthy marital status, hi ya mahlweni na ku hanya vutomi lebyi hi languteriweke ku hanya byona ku ya emahlweni. Hi khensile swinene, sweswi hi ta hundzela mahlweni hi nyika Dr. Maluleke leswaku va hi nyika dyondzo ya vona namuntlha. Inkomo. Dr. Maluleke, over to you. Aye.
Nakuthemba leswaku mvukile.
Inkomo hi swona.
So for me, yes, it was just to emphasize a few things. since the career COVID, we've heard a lot about issues like comorbidities, which applies to most of us. So my take-home point today is for let's make time in our busy schedules once or twice a year. Go and consult, get a thorough checkup, and know what is wrong or what is right with our bodies. Because we can stay 5-6 years without even visiting a doctor. So we can't do anything about the situation. So when it comes to that, I'm sure now the effect of having some of these comorbidities on our bodies. So it was just to say, as Madodana, and most being over 40, it is very important for us to have these assessments. So I just want just your basic assessments, which on a yearly basis you should never miss. One being blood pressure checkups. As blood pressure study, and it's one of the most important things that as Madodana we should check on, because it affects our bodies physically and emotionally, and so affect us now. Which, and it's a very simple test, as you usually use. There's nothing invasive about the test, and you can do it as regular as possible. So my advice is, you shouldn't spend 3 to 6 months without even checking your blood pressure when I image it. It's easier to test and to get advice, be it with treatment or other dietary requirements, including exercising. The other test being your blood sugar levels and your cholesterol levels. These are the tests, like I said, including your blood pressure. Just check all of those. For the over 40s, we always emphasize check prostate. But in comparison, when you do make all these visits, it's also good just to ask to check your whole system, how your liver is functioning, how your kidneys is functioning, any other tests that can be done. At least make sure we get into a habit of doing your yearly test or every 6 months. Let's not wait for us to have problems before we intervene. So I just wanted to emphasize on that point, that can we not, it's a and say we are healthy, we are fine, we don't have issues. Let's take our time, visit our doctors, do all these tests. We're basically protecting ourselves, protecting our loved ones who while going through all of these things. Most of these chronic conditions, once picked up early, it's very easy to manage, and that life is staying in a good way. So that was my take-home point. Can we at least not spend a year without doing all these tests? And if there's any questions on that, we can take it from there.
Inkomo Doctor, natsemba xibeleti leveni ku nga va ku ri na swin'wana hi lava ku clarify-wa hi swona mayelana na leswi va nga hi byela dokodela ku cheka blood pressure ya hina, cholesterol na prostate ngopfungopfu hina vavanuna. U kona loyi a lava ku commenta ehenhla ka swona? A ni voni mavoko, mi ta ni khomela?
Victor.
Ahee.
Oh, sorry, I said no, I go back to Magato to Pumalana dog or actually what actually is very, very important that message. I think the most problem that we see, blood pressure, you know, and then we're not talking about that. We're talking about you disciplining yourself for this where one of the kitties, and then you make time to go sit with him, and then Abu Kambel, and then he gives you the green light without you experiencing anything. I think that is also at the point. This message is not for Langa talk something, it's for everybody. Langa one life, Langa within the side of the voice ya Dr. Kitty Simple.
Itivisana kambe leswaku Madodana hi na pfhumba ra ku hlengeleta mikumba leyi nga ta ya hi ya nyikela lava pfumalaka, lava va tlelaka lomu switarateni. Kutani hi ndlela leyi hi kunguhate ku ya kona ku ya va nyikela kumbe ku phalala hi mikumba leyi hi ti 18 ta July ku nga Mandela Day. So kusukela mundzuku hi nkarhi wa 2 o'clock hi ta va hi ri kerekeni hi na vufambisi bya Madodana, 1 or 2 of us, hikuva a swi laveki leswaku hi va hi tele ngopfu. Hi ta amukela, ku ta va na ti-drop offs ta mikumba, n'wina mi nga xava mi yi tisa, na n'wina mi nga se xavaku. Vhiki leri taka hi Sunday nakambe hi 2 o'clock hi ti 11 hi ta tlhela hi yima kwale kerekeni hi amukela mikumba. Hi langutele ku ya donate mikumba more or less 50 or more than that. Se hi kombela leswaku as Madodana a hi ngheneleni pfhumba leri hinkwenu. A swi vuli ku ri u xava nkumba wun'we. Leswi hi swi voneke i ku loko u kume nkumba lowu wu kumekaka, xikombiso hi kumile mikumba leyi kumekaka eMacro i 150 rand wun'we, lero swa koteka ku ri van'wana hi ku nyikela ka hina swi ya hi matimba laha hi nga na wona, wa swi kota ku nyikela 10 or whatever number ya mikumba, hambi ku ri nkumba lowu u nga tshamaka u tirhisa kumbe lowu wa ha ri ku kahle u vonaka ku u nga nyikela hi wona. U ta endla drop off tomorrow na next week Sunday. Siku ra ti-18 ku ta va ku ri Sunday leyi hi nga ta ya hi ya phalala hi mikumba leyi laha hi nga ta va hi byeriwe kona ku hi ta ya kona. Nakona hi ta languta ku ri a hi nge yi hinkwenu, hi ta languta lava va nga ta va va swi kota ku ya va ya phalala hi mikumba leyi, mara a very reasonable number of us leswaku hi stika ka ti-regulations ta COVID-19. So hi swona switiviso leswikulu, unless ku ri na swin'wana. Loko hi ya fika emakumu hi ta kombela a vote of thanks hi tatana Ben Khosa, kambe hi ta rhanga hi nghena eka timhaka ta obituary. Eka obituary hi ta kombela mufambisi tatana Mnisi va hi nghenisela ka tona. Hi ta kuma risimu hi yimbelela, endzhaku ka swona va ta hi tivisa lava va hi siyeke kusukela last year ku fikela sweswi eka Madodana ya hina hinkwawo. Tirhake hosi yanga, hamina n'wana wako, andi voni un'wana, muponi si wena, muponi si wena.
Enkomo ku nyikiwa xiyenge lexi matsalani ku titsongahata lokukulu. A ni ta kombela ku mi mention mavito ya lava va nga hi siya. A ku ri xiyenge lexi a xi fanele xi khoma hi mfundhisi, kambe tanihiloko ni vurile ku sunguleni a ni nga expectangi ku ri va ta nghena, so va ni rhumele message ku ri va nge hetiseli conference na hina because apparently va na crisis nyana. So loko mo hi mentionela mavito ya vona, then he will observe a moment of silence, then hi khongelela mindyangu ya vona leswaku Xikwembu nga ku xi nga va nyika moya lowu kwetsima wu va katekisa ka xiyimo lexi va ri ka xona. van'wani va ha ri ka xona na sweswi. Inkomu.
Inkomo lava va hi siyeke kusukela lembe leri hundzeke ra 2020 hi lava va landzelaka. A ni nge vuli ku ri va vekiwe rini, kambe hi veke ku sungula eka lembe tatana Malefu, vona va zone 1, ivi hi ya veka nakambe tatana Peter Maphope va zone 3, hi tlhela nakambe ku hundza emisaveni tatana Themba Madziva na vona va zone 4, ku landzela tatana Joe Xingange vona va zone 5, ku hetelela tatana Chavani va zone 7. Se hinkwavo lava va hi siyile emisaveni a va ha ri kona, kutani eka nkarhi wa sweswi hi ku va tsundzuka hi xikhongelo. Inkomo mufambisi. A mi twali? Mi mutile mufambisi?
Inkomu tatana Maphope. A ni rivali ku unmute hi mhaka gome, ni tsundzuxe vanhu lava hi va rhandza. A hi nghena na vona kereke na le ka ntlawa wa hina. Inkomu, as I've said earlier, can we just observe a moment of silence wherever we are? Just bow and close your eyes. Hi tsundzuka varhandziwa va hina, ku nga ri vona ntsena, va kona van'wani lava va nga hi siya va tikereke tin'wani, kambe kwalaho ko pfumala nkarhi hi nge va mention hinkwavo, kambe na vona hi ta va tsundzuka ku ri Xikwembu xi katekisa tifemili ta vona. Inkomu. A hi khongeleni. Inkomu hosi, Xikwembu xa le henhla, wena mutumbuluxi wa tilo ni misava, wena u hi vumbeke hi rirhandzu ni tintswalo ni moya wena lowu kwetsima. Hi hina lava we hosi, ku na varhandziwa va hina lava a hi ri na vona, a hi na vona kereke, a hi va rhandza na vona a va hi rhandza. Hi lava va hi siyile, vo tatana Maphope, vo tatana Malefu, vo tatana Madziva. Kambe wena hosi, hi wena u nga vumba munhu, hi wena u tivaka masungulo na mahetelelo ya hina. Vanhu lava va nga hi siya we hosi a va siyangi tihomu kumbe timbuti, kambe va siye vanhu emindyangwini ya vona. Hi ri hina hi ri vo tatana ka conference ya 2021, hi nga ka hi nga koti ku va chavelela hikuva hi vanhu va nyama. Xilo xikulu a hi koti no va tshinelela hikuva ku na ti-COVID na ti-restrictions. Kambe wena hosi, moya wena lowu kwetsima a wu na ti-restrictions. Moya wena lowu kwetsima wu famba kun'wana na kun'wana. Moya wena lowu kwetsima wu famba 24/7. Na hina la hi nga tshama kona emindyangwini wa hi fikelela we hosi. Ha byi vona vukulukumba bya wena. A hi tshamangi emisaveni hi ku veni u hi rhandza ntsena, kambe u lo hi tsetselela. Van'wani va hina hi pfuke ka ti-ICU, kambe hi ku rhandza ka wena ha ri kona we hosi. Hi na ntshembo leswaku ta hi voningela u hi komba ndlela leswaku ha ya hi vekele yini emisaveni. Na vona lava u nga va teka u va tekile hi ku rhandza ka wena, kambe ku nga ri ku rhandza ka hina vanhu va nyama. Hi ri hi veka mindyangu ya vona emahlweni ka wena we hosi. Va chaveleli, va tiseli moya wena lowu kwetsima, va tiseli kurhula, va tiseli ntsako. Va kombi ku vonakala we hosi. Hi tshembe wena nga kona un'wani. A hi ku lerisi, kambe ha ku kombela hi vito ra n'wana wa wena Yesu Kreste muponisi wa hina. Amen.
Amen. Inkomo advocate Mnisi eka xiyenge lexi hi humaka xona xa obituary. Kutani sweswi hi ta kombela tatana Khosa va hi endlela vote of thanks, kutani hi pfala.
inkomo mfambisi na n'wina hinkwenu lava mi nga nghenela conference leyi. Xa mina i ku khensa vamakwerhu, ni khensa vurhangeri bya Madodana lebyi nga kota ku organizer conference ya parish ya xiyimo xa le henhla ngopfu. Hi khensa mufambisi tatani Maphophe lava nga hi fambisa hi ndlela ya le henhla ngopfu na vona hi xiyimo xa le henhla. Khensa mfundhisi Mongwe loyi a nga hi nyika dyondzo ya namuntlha leyi theme ya kona yi nga theme ya matimba ngopfu leyi nga ta hi fambisa eka conference ya Presbytery na ya national, I have overcome the world. Vamakwerhu swa fanelana leswaku hi khensa Professor Mulaudzi Chilidzi Jeffro loyi a nga hi phamela dyondzo ya matimba ngopfu leyi nga hi dyondzisa leyi a yi vulavula na ti-conscience ta hina. Khensa na Dr. Maluleke loyi hi minkarhi hinkwayo hina vavanuna a hi nyikaku leswi swi hi pfunaku. Ni rhandza nakambe ku khensa hinkwavo lava nga va na xiave ka conference leyi. Tatani Mageza, hi khensa na switiviso leswi hi nga nyikiwa swona. Vamakwerhu a hi tsundzukeni ku ri this coming conference ya Presbytery leyi nga ta va kona hi ti 17 hi ta kuma vuxokoxoko bya yona. A hi ngheneleni na yona lava hi nga ta komberiwa leswaku hi nghena eka yona. Ni rhandza ku khensa hinkwavo tatani Maphophe lava nga kota ku nghenela conference leyi. We are more than 20, which is even more than half, yeah, the number that was expected. Hi fomile quorum namuntlha, and ni tshemba leswaku Xikwembu xi ta hi katekisa hinkwenu lava hi nga kota ku nghenela conference leyi hina na mindyangu ya hina. Leswi hi nga swi dyondza ka conference leyi a swi hi ake hi va Madodani lama va nga khomisiki kereke ya EPCSA Tingana. Hi yona marito yalawo tatani Maphophe na mfambisi na mfundhisi, ni rhandza ku khensa hi tlhela ni vuyelela ni ku inkomu.
Inkomo ha khensa tatani Khosa eka vote of thanks ya hina. Sweswi hi ta kombela tatani Masiya va hi sumela risimu vhese yin'we ntsena hi karhi hi kombela tatana Sipho Ngomani va hi pfalela conference ya hina hi xikhongelo. Inkomo. Tatana Masiya.
Ya na lava risimu la minjumi ai ben lerwan number 23 ne ani mi verse yin'we ntsena.
Vhese yin'we ntsena.
Hlongela Yehova wena moya wanga khensa vito lerikulu ra hosi ya wena ndikensile hosi imilomo ni timbilu ndikensile ngopfu. Hey, verse 2 itanandiya inkomo vamakwerhu.
Yelani mahlweni loko yi nandziha hi ta hi nandzihela na hina. Yelani mahlweni verse 2.
Se endla swa swikhalabyazi.
Yeah,
La rivalelaka swidyo swa wena moya wanga vula imani hi yena Yehova ndikensile ngopfu ndikensile hosi imilomo ni timbilu ndikensile ngopfu.
Khani mambo inkomo. Tatana Ngomani hi kombela xikhongelo xo pfala conference leyi ya hina. Inkomo. Tatana Ngomani mi kona kusuhi? Swi tikomba kumbe va shift nyana. Hi khongeleni.
Sorry tatana Mapope.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
A ni ri ku khongeleni mara ni nge swi vonanga swa ku ni le ka mute.
Oh, okay, sorry.
A hi khongeleni. Tata hosi ya hina Yesu Kreste n'wina wa matimba hinkwawo. Hosi hi rhandza ku khensa eka nhlikani wa namuntlha. Hi khensa n'wina wa matimba hinkwawo loko u hi hlayisile. Hi ku rhambile hosi Xikwembu tatana eku sunguleni ka nhlengeletano ya hina leswaku u va kona lowu u hi fambisaka u hi rhangelaka u nghenisa moya wa wena lowu kwetsima. Kunene n'wina wa matimba hinkwawo ha swi tiva leswaku tanihi va tatana a hi basanga etimbilwini ta hina. Hikwalaho u kotile ku va eka siku ra namuntlha u hi dyondzisa u hi tsundzuxa hosi Xikwembu tatana ku va hi basisa timbilu ta hina. Hi rhandza ku khensa hosi Xikwembu loko ha kota ku hi rhangela u hi fambisa eka minkarhi leyo tika leyi hi hlanganaka na yona eka nkarhi wa sweswi. Kambe wena hosi Xikwembu u endlile leswaku hi sisimuka laha a hi etlele kona emasangweni ya hina ku va hi ta twa rito ra wena. Hi rhandza ku khensa hosi Xikwembu hi khensa tidyondzo hinkwato leti hi ti kumeke leswaku ti nga va tona leti hi dyondzisaka kusuka sweswi ku ya emahlweni n'wina matimba hinkwawo. Hosi Xikwembu hi rhandza ku khensa hi khensa na hinkwavo n'wina matimba hinkwawo lava hi dyondziseke eka siku ra namuntlha. Lava n'wina matimba hinkwawo ni nga ta ka ni nga yi ka vona hi un'we kun'we kambe wena wa va tiva hosi Xikwembu tatana. Hi khensa na mindyangu ya hina leyi hi seketeleke ku va hi kota ku nghenelela hosi Xikwembu eka tidyondzo ta namuntlha. Ha khongela n'wina matimba hinkwawo leswaku hi hlayise u hi endla lava va landzelelaka swileriso swa wena. U hi tata rirhandzu etimbilwini ta hina n'wina matimba hinkwawo leswaku hambi swiyimo swi hi tikela hosi Xikwembu hi titsongahata n'wina matimba hinkwawo leswaku hi ta kota ku papalata swo biha eka hina. Ha khongela hosi Xikwembu leswaku loko ha ta tlhelela emakaya hi hlangana na mindyangu ya hina hosi Xikwembu hi va vatatana lava va cinceke n'wina matimba hinkwawo hikuva tidyondzo leti hi ti kumeke eka siku ra namuntlha ti hi cincile etimbilwini ta hina. Ha khongela hosi Xikwembu hi tsundzuka na vamakwerhu lava hi siyeke lava hosi Xikwembu tatana a hi nghena na vona. Ha titsongahata eka wena hosi Xikwembu sweswi n'wina matimba hinkwawo ni hi laha ku nga heriki. Amen.
Amen. Inkomo mufambisi inkomo advocate mina ntirho wu hela kwala. Hi khensile xikhongelo xo pfala hi tatana Ngomani. Va ri bon voyage. Inkomo.
Hi khensile tatana Mapope hi khensa ku fambisiwa kahle.
Na khensa.
Xikwembu xi mi katekisa. Hi khensa